Hello boxing fans, I'm just going to do a quick recap of the night's fights and where these guys are going to go. It's more in depth on where these guys are going, and I don't actually think Devon Alexander versus Kell Brook will take part through a mixture of both of their happenings really, and the fact that it doesn't work in with boxing politics, doesn't work in with both of these guys' styles in terms of promotion styles, just doesn't work out for me. A lot of this stuff has got to do now with boxing politics. You've got to understand boxing politics if you want to understand boxing. If you don't understand them, mate, you better get out of the sport. Firstly, obviously, Kell Brook now is the IBF mandatory challenger. He beat Hector Saldivia, and he was very impressive doing so, knocking this guy out, who people said were going to really test his chin, test him up, test him in every way possible, really, and he didn't. Kell knocked him clean out, basically. Devon Alexander, who a lot of people, including myself, expected to, really put a number on Rendell Bailey. Rendell Bailey came forward. Alexander stayed on the back pedal. He regressed heavily for my liking. I'm not a big Devon Alexander fan, but I put a good amount of money on him to win this fight by a knockout. And I thought, realistically, if he fights that fight anything like he did the Marcos Maidana fight, then he should really have this guy out of there in the final quarter of the fight. Thing was, he didn't. He took the easy route to the unanimous decision. He got that, hands down. There was no robbery involved in this. St. Louis actually did a good job in terms of the scorecards in this one. Probably first time anyone has ever said that, but that's another story. But let's go back into why I don't think this fight's going to happen. Kell Brook is the IBF number one, but he's only 26, and I don't think he's ready. What's the point in throwing a guy in there with a guy, who's got all the aces in their hand? Someone's going into a poker game right now, yeah? If you're bluffing, yeah, and the other guy's got a good hand, you're going to lose. Yeah, you're going to lose. What's the point in it? You got to realise it's not just Kell Brook here, yeah? He's got a team and he's got his promoters. They're not going to want to just throw him into any fight that he's going to lose, because they're the ones who are going to try and make money off Kell. Yeah, and so forth. If Devon Alexander's team think that they're going to lose, they're going to want to keep every single ace in their hand so that they've got more chance of winning the fight. You understand? If you actually want to know how I think that fight will go before you listen to whatever they say, I actually think that Kell Brook loses that fight right now. I'm not 100% sure what how I look at it really. I've got it right now 60-40 to Devon if it's in a neutral venue, any other venue around the world. But if it's St. Louis, I'm sort of 75% on Devon Alexander. You know what I mean? Because St. Louis is where it happens. It's where the robberies happen, mate. Yeah, but that's not the only way Kell has to go. If you didn't already know, you should have listened to it when they were doing the announcements. He also holds the WBA Intercontinental or International title. Either way, it's basically the WBA number 2 or number 3 spot title. Title holder is Paulie Malignaggi. He fought on the exact same night, and he also seemed to regress compared to his last fight against Vladislav Zinchenko. And when you look at who he fought that Kano guy who lost very easily to Eric Morales. And may I just point out, when you compare the guys, Zinchenko, Kano, the better one, clearly on every aspect of however you want to put it really, is Zinchenko. He's the much better opponent, and I think there's a chance that maybe Paulie actually burnt himself out in that fight and therefore he's not as good as he was. Or the other actual way of looking at it is probably, and it's also quite realistic to be honest, is Golden Boy set up the fight. Basically they said to Kano, we're going to put you into the Eric Morales fight, but we want you to lose that fight. He says why? Because we're going to pay you a lot of money for it, and we're also going to give you another world title shot, and therefore a payday down the line against whoever holds the whatever title that they want to fight for. You understand? You would say, is that realistic? But this is boxing, guys. This isn't a pretty sport. They aren't here to play games. This is a business. People in business are corrupt as fuck. You only have to just work a day in your life, a normal day's work, and you'll realise the people who are on the take, people who are literally ripping the businesses off. I've seen it myself at where I work. People are actually, ripping the business off, different businesses off, And I can see how it's going to work here, because don't forget, they're ripping you off. You're the mug who's giving them the money. And me too, I mean, I buy into the sport, but I only give my money to domestic guys. But that being said, even those fights can be sometimes fixed. Just hopefully it's fixed in favour of your guy. That's all I can say. Yeah, so that's not the only way down the road for him. And it also opens up another 2 or 3 fights. One for Kell Brook, that he could actually fight Maidana before taking on Malignaggi. And it also allows Malignaggi to get another payday in there, maybe against Dimitri Salita, who I think he's actually quite happy about fighting deep down inside, as he knows it's an easy fight that he could win. The next thing I'm going to look at is the promoters. Like I said, the promoters, they're here to make money. They ain't here to make the fans happy. They're here to make money off Kell. They're here to make money off Devon. Promoters have different strategies. All promoters have a different strategy for their boxers. Top Rank and Golden Boy have got very similar strategies. I call it the American way of doing business. Golden Boy have actually styled theirs up on Top Rank and tried to make it better. But it's really not worked, and they just look the same. I think they slightly hide it better, but I'll sort of explain how they do it, really. And this can happen between... You'll just notice this with all the American prospects, really. Look at Austin Trout, look at Canelo, look at Broner even. Look at all these guys. Yeah, what they do is they build up a paper record on their CVs against domestic guys, a few fringe contenders who are, really ready to go down the ladder. They just need that extra payday. They need that little bit more money floated in front of their face to really fall down the ladder. And that's pretty much what these guys do. They put the money in front of these guys, say, here, you fight our guy, and then we'll see what happens, right? They obviously lose that fight, fall down the ladder. They get some more hype behind them, because they really build up, they've got great PR going on for these, prospects sometimes, They put the hype on them, and that's all it takes, man. You need a bit of hype behind you, and then you can go far. So they've never actually really been in the deep end. Even Adrian Broner, you've got to look at him. He's never actually fought a good fight. Canelo's never fought anyone. Mike Jones, I'm going to use him as a good example. He built up a record domestic level fighters in the USA. He fought 2 fringe contenders, probably losing to Carras the first time, and beating him the second time, hands down, in my opinion. And then he lost his world title fight against Rental Bailey. Another domestic level, fringe contender level fighter. That's how it works. Matchroom, I've got a different strategy, and this is the try and build their business strategy. What they need to do is need to get as many boxers to sign with them as possible. Good boxers, not just the wank ones. Yeah. What they need to do was get their fighters title shots. Good example would be Darren Barker, European level boxer at most. If he's going to go on to anywhere, I would put him in against Dmitry Pirog. He's the best guy he could realistically beat right now, or maybe Felix Sturm. Anyway, they just threw him into the first title shot they got their hands on. It was Sergio Martinez. I doubt the money was great, because Martinez doesn't, attract that great money. But, when you compare the two, Darren Barker shouldn't be in the ring with Sergio Martinez on paper. Or, when you actually look at their skills, they shouldn't be in there together. I understand that Darren Barker didn't disgrace himself and he did alright, but what I'm saying is they didn't deserve to be in there together. The level between them was vast, in my opinion. They've recently changed that style anyway. They've now got a load of good signed up to their roster, whatever you want to call it. And now what they're doing is they're manoeuvring. They're doing the American way of business, because it's a smart way of doing business too. I'm not dissing it. If I got all of my favourite fighters doing it, I'll be a very happy man. If I was a promoter and I got them doing it, I'll be a very rich man. That's what I'm pointing out. Now what they're doing is they're manoeuvring Kell Brook to a world title fight that they're going to win, and then they're going to hold out of Sheffield. That's the plan, okay? Don't get it twisted, and don't diss it because everyone else does it. You look at Devon Alexander, do you think his next fight's not going to be in St. Louis? Most of his fights have been in St. Louis, even the ones he should have lost. So, don't diss it. Floyd Mayweather too. You look at Floyd Mayweather, and he could sell out a stadium anywhere in the world. If you charged £1,000 a seat in a football stadium in Germany, that it would sell out, and you could make a footload of money, and still make all the money that you could make on pay-per-view in America. Probably more, because a lot of Americans don't travel. People don't think about this, do they? You see, he keeps all of his aces in his hand still. He's doing the American way of business, you know, holding all the aces and draining the money. It's smart. Yeah? That's why they turned down the Bradley fight with Kell Brook. Yeah, they said, that's not in our plan. We don't think he's going to win it. We're going to maneuver him our way. So that's what they're going to do anyway, okay? Going back to Alexander, you know, I think his fight has regressed between the Maidana fight and the Bailey fight. But he still holds the aces in his corner. That's why I don't think they're going to take that fight. What I think is they're going to take a Maidana fight. Hear me out right now, okay? What they're going to do, and this is what I would do because I know business, right? I would keep Kell's perfect record and I would straddle his IBF mandatory spot against Marcus Maidana's #1 WBA spot, right? Now, the way I look at it is Maidana got severely embarrassed by Alexander. And he said he'd like to put it right when the time's right. Well, how about the time being right soon, now that you're more acclimatized to 147 pounds? Between that time, straight after the Alexander fight, he actually did reject a 400k fight offer from Kell Brook. That's 400, £400,000, yeah? A lot of money. He turned that down, hands down, when I'm going back down to 147 pounds. Then he signed, he sort of agreed to fight Keith Thurman at 147 pounds, pulled out, and then fought Soto Carras. Okay, so he's at 147 pounds. He's now the WBA #1. Maybe them two could straddle their fights together. Yeah, they could straddle their #1 spots together. The winner comes out with 2 #1 spots, and therefore has the chance to go on to whichever world title fight they want. I'm pretty sure that whoever wins that fight, but is basically going to pick a fight against WBA champion Paulie Malignaggi after he really did regress in his fight against Kano, who I don't think's a very good boxer, to be honest. I don't think he's that good. I think Paulie's brilliant, but I really like Paulie. I think he's a good fighter. I just think he's coming to the end of it now. He's maybe burnt himself out, or maybe Kano didn't try as hard as he should have in his Morales fight. I just want to point that out. The major stumbling blocks to what I've just said, 2 things. Golden Boy. Everyone likes Golden Boy. I don't know why. I think they're just more gangsters in suits. Let me tell you why. They both promote Maidana and Paulie. So them being greedy wankers, they'll want to put Paulie and Maidana together so they get double the amount of money, from their percentage cut. Yeah, think about it like that. The second thing is Maidana. Maidana himself, he's never been a big risk taker. He's never really put it all on the line against all those guys, He's rejected fights, like I said, against Bradley at 140 pounds, the Ortiz rematch at 140 and 147 pounds, and he's also rejected fights with Brook and Thurman at 147 pounds. And that's just fights off the top of my head that I can remember, right now. High profile matches, these, by the way, that if you're into boxing, you should really know about. You really should know about. Otherwise, you might as well want to just go watch ballet or something. And this isn't just a bash Maidana's lack of balls comment either. This is the problem with all boxers today. No one wants to gamble on the back of their own skills. We haven't seen Pacquiao Mayweather, Bradley Conn. I'm going to highlight that one as one, to really use. Bradley Conn, 2 real prospects who could go on the ladder to go and do whatever they want. Never actually fought because one or both of them, doesn't matter which way you look at it, they didn't want to get it on. And in hindsight, Bradley could have won that fight, got more respect, got more money, brought more to the table to the Pacquiao fight if he had won that fight. Probably got more money out of the Pacquiao fight, That's what I'm thinking. Also, looking, at the years, it took 2 years to get us Martinez Chavez, took us years to get Wladimir Hay on, and now, even though there's no stumbling blocks here, we still haven't got Vitali versus Hay, and that's the best fight that can be made. So, you got to say, Gold Boy going to be a big stumbling block in this fight, and so is Maidana. But other than that, if you look at Kell Brook, even if he decides to go down the IBF route, there's no guarantee it's going to come off that quickly. WBC 140 pounds mandatory challenger Jose Alushkin, He held the number one spot for 3 years, man. 3 years before he was handed a shot at something that wasn't even the main belt, and he lost that fight. How awkward is that? Selçuk Aydin too, WBC 147-pound mandatory position. 2 years holding that position, where 3 champions held the belt before he got his title shot, and none of them give him his mandatory shot. So just because Kell's the IBF mandatory shot doesn't mean he's going to get the fight. Not by a long shot. Kell is not a big name in America. You got to realize that. And with an American holding the title, which happens to be the IBF belt, which is situated in America, main offices are down the road from where Zab Judah lives. Do you think the IBF are going to want to give the title shot to a guy who, he could win the fight? I'm not going to lie, he could win the fight and take that belt back to Sheffield. It's not in the business strategy for, Devon Alexander to lose a fight to Kell Brook and have his title just fly away on a plane back to the UK. It's not going to happen, I don't think. Like I said, I'll be very surprised if this fight comes off. Tell me if you think this fight will happen. Tell me who you think is going to win. This isn't a prediction, it's just what I think.